So I skipped last week's video for a couple of reasons, and always just shame on me for that, but I just tried to change the setup a little bit, if you probably noticed. So I have a better lens for sharper images, and also just a better microphone to pick up just way better audio for you. So I hope you appreciate it, and if you have any feedback to where I can also improve in the future, just leave it down in the comment section. I'm just really glad if you just give me any feedback in this direction. Today we're not talking about all the new stuff, we're just talking about all the old stuff and why maybe notebooks like this Acer TravelMate 220 here next to me was just better than all these new devices you can just get here on the other side. We can just draw a comparison in a minute. So last time we just talked about a 30-year-old sleeper PC I just built. You can just check out the video up here if you want to, a really long detailed video on how I built a pretty cool sleeper in my opinion. And today we're just taking a look at the Acer TravelMate 220 and why this nearly 20-year-old notebook here is just pretty awesome and has some features that are way better than these new devices have. So let's get started right after the intro. Here we go, and welcome to the Idea of Technology. My name is Michael, and today we're talking somehow about how notebooks are built nowadays and what sustainability and also just carbon footprint means nowadays. This whole Apple discussion just made it somehow obvious, and for me also talk about it and why modern devices somehow lack this functionality and this feature. And I think it's just more important than ever that you have a device that you can just upgrade, have more versatility with it, and have just a long-term endurance and really strong and really good working device on your side, and not this, okay, if something is just broken inside my device, I will just throw it away and just buy a new one. This approach is hopefully coming to an end in a couple of years. So I just want to show you a few things that I just focusing on and why this Acer TravelMate 220 just made a couple of things really, really good back in the days. Okay, starting with the elephant in the room, I just want to get rid of this whole pack here of devices and the Surface Pro 7, my daily business driver when I'm just working. You can also check out the video up here where I was just a little bit critical, so a lot of negative feedback and some positive feedback, but I just talked about 3 reasons why you should not buy a Surface Pro 7, and probably there's a 4 in my opinion where you can just tell, okay, if something inside here is just broken, to get inside this device and just repair it, like the battery, the CPU, the RAM, whatever, you should have pretty bad time. And this is probably the biggest problem for me with the Surface Pro 7. It's absolutely nothing you can just repair on your own or upgrade in the future. You're just completely stuck with the capacity you have just in here, with the RAM, with the SSD, whatever. You need to decide for yourself what you need to pick in the first place. Like with most modern MacBooks, you can also just have the ability to just choose it from the beginning, and then you're stuck with the specifications. And a little bit better is probably the Lenovo Legion 5 I feel, with the AMD version of it, with the AMD processor, the Ryzen 7 4800H, so pretty powerful machine. This is now my editing and gaming machine, so if you want to see the full review, just get subscribed. It will come in a couple of weeks. This is just doing it really good in my opinion, because easy Phillips head screws on the bottom here, and you can just easily get into it and just unscrew everything. You can change the RAM, so I upgraded from 16 to 32 gigs of RAM. You can also just put a second SSD into it, a SATA or an NVMe SSD, which is just super versatile, something you don't see on a lot of devices. So just pretty good. This is, in my opinion, just a modern approach to a notebook, but it's even not perfect in my opinion. Because last but not least, I have this Lenovo ThinkPad T460, I think so. This has some pretty unique features. I don't see this often nowadays because of this ultrabook super slim form factor. You can just pop out one half of the battery, which is just pretty interesting if you think about it. So you just have the chance to they just split the battery in 2 parts. So you have just internal battery with 24 watt hours, and you have just an external or just replaceable hot swappable battery part also with 24 watt hours. So 2 parts of the battery, and the one part is just hot swappable, so you can just always just drain this one battery, and if this is just dead, the notebook will just switch to the internal battery, and you can just swap out the battery while this system is running, or just make it hot swappable and also replaceable. So in my opinion, this is also an interesting approach, and the Acer TravelMate here just put this whole thing a little bit further, but I just want to show you that this is also something Lenovo was just doing a couple of years ago and is not doing that often nowadays. Which brings us perfectly to this chunky boy over here. This was made from Acer in 2002, so nearly 20 years old. Pretty insane. This was delivered with Windows XP back in the days. Super chunky, 2.8 kilograms, super heavy. Yeah, like a brick, a lot of plastic. But I will just guide you through this because I think this is just pretty insane machine, and when I just got this in my hands, I was like, it's just pretty cool. There are some features in here that I don't see in modern devices that I would just really like and I don't have access to. So let's just get started with this TravelMate 220. Starting with the I/O, you just have the power plug here on the side. You have just this one weird thing here on that side. Also just a combo drive for DVD and CD. Here on the back we just have the connection for this PS mouse and keyboard connector, a serial port, another bigger serial port just for your printer. Back in the days, a lot of piece of plastic, at least 2 USB ports, so no serial at all. Just also universal serial ports, which is just pretty cool. So it's just 1.0, so not fast, but at least universal, which was a huge step forward back in the days. VGA, so the only display out is just made by a VGA port. A modem, which you don't have this often nowadays and you don't need probably. So back in the days, notebooks have just a modem inside of it. Ethernet port, as well as on this side Kensington lock. Expansion port, they're really interesting. Enough audio inputs and outputs. And on the front we just have floppy drive, so also pretty insane. That means we have just 2 drives in here, a floppy drive and DVD as well. When it comes to I/O, this was just whole packed in here, and back in the days this was just entry-level notebooks for 1,400 euros. Super expensive in my opinion for entry-level notebooks, but this was probably just one of the best you can get for money. And that's for a couple of reasons, and I like the approach of it. So we can probably also just take a look inside of it. We have just this glorious 4-inch XGA TFT LCD here in front of me, which was just 1024 by 768 pixels, so not this high density. Also with the super bad speakers here in front of it. Back in the day, speakers were just here underneath the display, which is a good placing, better than the underneath chassis approach you see nowadays, but these sounds are really bad. And you also get this weird flimsy and always broken off closing mechanism where you can just slide this open and close it. Also Lenovo did this and they just get rid of it because this always just breaks off these super stupid hinges and hooks up here. On the inside it was just super impressive. We have just 1.13 gigahertz Intel Celeron mobile processors, so these were just the first rocking mobile processors, and also in sync with this super slow SODIMM RAM with 256 megabytes, but you can upgrade it up to 1 gigabyte and clocked at 133 megahertz, so super slow but they were just in sync, not desynchronized, which was more common back in the days. So this was just rocking really fast. 20 gigabyte HDD, but inside here we have 60 gigabytes. So back in the days, also 60 gigabytes was more than enough to run XP and a lot of different applications. In my opinion, the specs were just good back then, but what's more interesting to me is just the flexibility of the ports and the expandability, and this is just where the TravelMate is just super strong. Because if you think about back in the days, you really need to have a lot of flexibility because there were not so many standards back then. You really needed to go out and have a lot of ports you really need. Starting with these floppy drive here, as well as DVD drive. And the cool part on the DVD drive, and we're now taking a look at the back here, which is super interesting to me. You can really hot swap this DVD drive, and it's just out with the SATA and power connector here, and you really easily could just get rid of your DVD drive and swap it out for something else, or upgrade it, or just go for a second battery, which was also an option. So you have just 2 batteries inside of it, which was just pretty cool. But this is hot swappable as well. You could just get rid of your complete battery here. If you think about this, it's just 4000 milliamp hour battery, so maybe the same size capacity like your smartphone you've already in your hands watching this video. Pretty insane if you think about that. Back in the days, batteries were this huge. But the cool part is you can just, if this is empty and you have a second battery with you, pop it in and have another 4 hours of runtime. Super cool feature. Never seen before. Okay, we have this shared battery like in the Lenovo ThinkPad I just showed you before, but completely switching the battery inside and out while also connecting to DC power, it's just pretty cool. So you can just charge a couple of these and have it with you. So this was just the way to go. On the other side, we just need a screwdriver because there are Phillips head screws. So we can just take a deeper look inside here, because I think it's also pretty interesting to see what you also can just swap out. The first part is obviously, without taking off the complete plastic, you just need with all the other modern notebooks nowadays, we have just this maintenance ports here, 3 of them. This just here should be for the RAM, I guess. Yep. This is just the sodium RAM. We have just here 256 megabytes from Infineon, which was pretty funny. Infineon is a German company. Just this RAM, you can just upgrade it to 512, or even just go and buy a completely new set of sodium RAM and go for 1 gigabyte RAM, which is really huge amount of RAM back in the days. So this just here should be fine. Pop this back in, and let's see what's underneath these two. What's interesting to me was like we have just this shield here, and with this shielded plastic, you have all these connectors here in the shroud, where you also need to make contact to get the notebook back running. So this is really interesting in my opinion. Back here, I guess the next port is just for the modem, so you can just swap out the modem like you can with the modern Wi-Fi connector. You also have this shielding here, as well as all the connectors here. Come on, where you can just use the slider and pop out the HDD. So you can also just switch these, and you have just this hole inside of here, and easily could pop out the HDD drive. Okay, so now we have everything back in place. Yes, this is a chunky boy, but at the same time you get a lot of flexibility, a lot of expandability, like you have not on modern devices anymore. So I think this is just pretty cool. Unfortunately, I have no chance to power this up. I have a power supply, but at the same time it not turns on, because yes, you hear it. It boots somehow and powers up, but I think the display is just broken, so I have no chance to access. I have no chance to get access to the Windows XP OS inside of it. I would be really interested in how good this runs nowadays and how just it feels and how snappy it is. But unfortunately, this is pretty tricky. Maybe I can fix the screen, or maybe you know the common problem with these. I would guess most parts are pretty fine. Also the hard drive is just spinning normal, and all the other parts are also just working like intended, and also the fan is just pretty silent. I looked at everything. I have no clue. Maybe you have an idea. So conclusion, I know this video is not about all the crazy specs and all the crazy things you could just do with such a device. But I just want to tell you that I think it's not always about having the slimmest and most sexiest device when you have just not enough space for decent cooling like on the Surface Pro 7. So just look at this super tiny, maybe 1 millimeter thick piece here where you can just also just hot air you can just get from this really powerful CPU inside. So this is just a powerful device, but at the end, maybe I personally would just go for something bigger. Okay, not that big anymore, but for something bigger with a bigger battery that is not degrading that fast over the time, because I see something like an investment in notebook and something like have it for the next 5, 6 or even 7 years, because I also think the Microsoft approach is just heading into this direction where you just have always a modern and sleek and slim and sexy Windows 10. It could be just the case, so I would be also just more interested in having a device that lasts really long and have just modern standards. I know these are evolving over the time, but having more flexibility, more expandability, changing the RAM, changing the battery as well. So I think battery changing is just really important in my opinion, because this will just get worse over time. It's just the fact. And also have the ability maybe to change the CPU, just like on some devices you can get out there where you can just have desktop CPUs inside your notebooks. Crazy powerful, I know, but you can just swap this out when it's just the same CPU with the same socket. It's just possible. And I think Acer back then just made a pretty appealing device where you just have a lot of flexibility, a lot of things you can just change for yourself as an end user without voiding the warranty, which is also something different when you can just change something nowadays. It's not covered by the warranty if you have a bad time. Also, just let me know in the comments what you think about these devices, this super thick boy here that I'm now just killing. And I would be really interested what you think. Are you also this interested or just amazed what was possible back then? Or are you just thinking, super lame modern devices with 11th gen Intel CPUs or modern Ryzen CPUs are just way better in every term? Or do you think the manufacturers should just change somehow the form factor and just go back to more flexibility? So just let me know. And as always, if you disliked this video, you know what to do. But if you liked it, hit like down there, get subscribed and enable the notifications with the bell icon so you won't miss any future video of the idea of technology. And I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.